What's up, everybody? This is Brandon, and that is Arron, and this is Grit number 5 from Gearist. Arron, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day. So it's spring. Everybody watching this, we are recording this Sunday, April 10th. It will go live on Wednesday, April whatever comes 4 days from now. 3 days from now? 3 days. So it'll be the 13th. That's when it will be live on YouTube, on Rumble, on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Spotify, all those things. So go listen to the show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Those of you that have been watching so far, thank you so much. And thank you for really joining in with comments, things like that. We want to hear more. Please tell your friends. And honestly, the things that we're talking about as it pertains, and I'll kind of get into what we're actually talking about for those of you that are joining for the first time. We want to hear your experiences with those things, because this isn't just about Arron telling you what he has done and wants to do, and what Brandon is telling you what I have done and what I want to do. But we want to learn, right? This is to learn. That, I think, above all else, what we're trying to do here is to learn, and so that Arron makes it to the start line and then to the finish line of the 2022 Leadville Trail 100, right?
That's the plan.
Yeah. So those of you joining us for the first time, here's what this is. It's called Grit because it takes a lot of grit. It's not just courage. It's not just heart. It's not just endurance. Frankly, it's not just putting up with all of the minutia of life, but it's all of those things, and getting through and getting to the start line of any particular event. Now, in this particular case, Arron came to me a few months ago and said, "Hey, I'm running the Leadville Trail 100, or got in, I guess, the Leadville Trail 100 2022. Do you want to crew for me?" So there's some logistics of that we've addressed a bit of in past episodes. So please go listen to those, leave comments. We want to hear from you guys. And then we're actually going to talk about how we get there. Cause one, that dude's got to cover 100 miles. I do not, but I still have to get my fat ass back in shape. So there's that, it's all good.
And let's be real honest here. And I've said this before, after 60 plus miles,
it's all good.
We'll get there. I'm not worried. We got plenty of time.
Absolutely. And so before we kind of get into what we're going to talk about today, and just so you guys know what we are talking about today, on our last show, we actually had Neil Pallas, who is a endurance sports, like mental performance coach, psychologist, and it was fantastic to have him on there. We haven't gotten that many questions thus far, but I'd really love to hear you guys just take on all those things that we discussed that last time. And today we're going to be talking about feet, because let's be fair, there's a bit of where the rubber hits the road, pun fully intended. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, we've got some comments. Let's see, from 2 episodes ago. So episode 3, if my math is right. So we've read a few of those on a past show, but today we're gonna look at a couple of these. And so first, Cool in Olympia, she says, "Great job on your workout, Brandon." Hey, thanks. "I'm coming back from a long, drawn-out medical issue, which resulted in a great deal of anemia, and then what is that? Oh, and then a hysterectomy. Now my fitness is coming back, and I hope even better. Most of all, I learned to celebrate every moment of my ability to move my body, and I have gratitude for every workout." And by the way, she has 2 coaches. I'll say this, what's interesting, Arron, I'm curious if so Aaron's 38, I'm 44, is that we look at our bodies kind of as these machines where it's kind of like, you take care of it, you put the right food in, you sleep enough, you recover properly. Well, you do all these things, but that little unknown thing, and it sounds like this is what she was dealing with, is the hormonal thing, which has got to be just next level. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even imagine if you're dealing with that and then you have something that just throws your world out of balance on a baseline kind of chemical level. That's got to be so challenging, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think about not only the hormone level, but just sickness in general. I mean, disease, yes. And going through, I mean, especially the last 2 years with COVID, I got COVID at least once.
Yep.
And what that did to my training for 2 weeks, or lack of training for 2 weeks. But the whole aspect of the things you can't you can't control. It's all those variables, right? So
Right.
whether it's weather or your body or as ultra runners and endurance athletes, we like to control as much as possible when it comes to training, the gear we use, what we do.
Yes.
But it's all the like you said, it's all those things in between that we cannot control. That throws wrenches all the time into training, into your plans,
Yes.
into life.
So much. I mean, it's nuts. And we talked about this with Neil last week, right? So when we've got this thing, like you miss a run, so you get down on yourself mentally, and then that takes away from that complete pie, right? So all of a sudden it throws everything else out of balance. And certainly not to make a false equivocation between, like, you know, having some bad ceviche and having a crappy run because of it, pun intended. I'm not trying to compare that to hormonal stuff, but
Right.
it's amazing, all of those things which throw kind of like wrenches of varying sizes in there. I'll say for me, this is a long time ago, so I was much younger, and of course, like, I'm a different guy now. Like, my body is different, but this is probably back in, I don't know, 2010, 9, somewhere in there. And I was doing these runs, and I'm not a gluten-free guy. If you're actually somebody who has celiac, I certainly empathize with that. If you just choose to be gluten-free because you choose to be gluten-free, A, I'm sorry. B, good on you. I mean, you do you. In my case, I don't really do that. In fact, whenever I have had gluten-free breads, like a bun on a hamburger or something like that, it just sits in my stomach like a rock. But for a while there, this is years ago when I was still living in New York City, I figured out that I really needed to not eat anything wheat based at all, like whether it was a noodle or any sort of bread or whatever, within probably an hour and a half to 2 hours of a run, or my stomach would fall apart. And then I kind of combined that with taking a probiotic at about that time. And it was just a world of difference. But it's like that chemistry, that balance of my body, figuring those things out was so challenging. And you're right, Aaron, like, I had COVID twice. Um, Not a big deal, but it's kind of funny how you've got the mental aspect of COVID, which, at the beginning, we know everyone was freaked out about the mental aspect of it. If you're freaked out about the mental aspect of it now, that's because you're not reading anything. And so, like, as we move forward, it's trying to get past the mental aspect of it and also the health aspect of it. So it's just kind of, it's a combination of all this stuff, like you just said. And I am saying in 1,000 words where 10 would have done. So GDK Mouse says, okay, horror story is, I think taking 6 gels all at once was a good idea during a marathon. The after effects were not pretty. On the flip side, ice cold Coke when it was really hot worked. Dude, 6 goos or gels or whatever all at once? Holy crap.
I mean, that wall must have been thick because
Dude.
I have trouble getting one down.
Wow.
I can't imagine taking 6 to the face and then feeling like this was a great idea.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if they, like, because some of them have caffeine in them. Not all of them do.
Well, you imagine 6 Roctanes?
No.
Oh.
It sounds like 6 rocks in your gut. I'm not gonna lie. That's crazy, man. GDK Mouse also says, also, when I did my last 50 miler back in 2015, I think, I finished just under 2 minutes to spare. Well done. The sweeper was the person who kept me going. That is awesome. I was close to the wire. I would not have finished in time if he wasn't there. Always good to have someone who knows what is going on, who isn't in, quote, the dark place. 100%. That's amazing, man. I mean, Aaron, have you seen, I don't know if you watch, on Iron Man, it's a much bigger deal than like like the Boston Marathon is what, tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think they show the sweepers.
No.
But in Iron Man, they
do.
They do. They make a big deal of it and they try to prevent it, right? So you have like a swim cutoff, then you have a bike cutoff, and then on most run courses and a full Ironman, you have like incremental run cutoff. So like if you're not to this point
Oh,
by,
okay.
X time, you're probably not going to get to the finish line by
Right, like aid
midnight.
station
Right.
cutoffs and an ultra race.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But dude, I've seen those people where they come across because you have 17 hours to do an Ironman, right? You come across at 17:01, that's it.
No bueno.
17
Yeah.
hours and 1 second, that's it. And then I've seen people that come in at 16:59, 59, 99, and you're like, whoa. So
Yeah, but the difference is 16:59.99 is an Ironman.
that's true. That's true.
17:00:01 is not.
It's not. That sucks. Beaker Concept. So this is Andrew Block. I mentioned him. If you guys don't know Andrew Block or Beaker Concepts, you should check them out. They have a lot of really cool stuff. Just BEAKER concepts.com, I believe. He says, always try and start an ultra with real food. Because if you start with gels and drink, you may get tired of it when you really need it. And by that time, no way will real food appeal to you. If you start with real food and then get a gel or drink later in the day, it'll go down much easier. And yes, for sure, if you see it and think it might taste good, eat it in all caps, he says. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I tell you we did 20, I think I did 21 miles this morning. And the thought of having another gel was awful. But again, I knew I needed a gel or I was going to take me another hour to get home. And I didn't, I had things to do today.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So Matthew Garrity, what's up, Matt? How are you, buddy? He says, great stuff, guys. So excited for your return to Gearist. Very interested in all the details of how the training goes for both of you, including how they are similar and where they differ based on roles. And he says, maybe look into BPN's G1. Do you know this? BPN G1? I'm going to write that down. BPN G1. More sport electrolyte drink. It seems to work well with a pretty standard flavor as well. That's good. That's good to know. I feel like it's have all the things in your quiver that you can.
That's Nick Barr's performance nutrition stuff.
Oh, yeah. Bar Performance Nutrition. Right.
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Well, I will put a link to that and I will get my hands on some. Let's see. Bar Performance. There we go. Thank you for that, Matt. I appreciate it. And then Geek with a Side of Nerd, because he was watching when our show goes live. By the way, it goes live like it's done and recorded and all that stuff beforehand, but it goes actually live at 5 a.m. Eastern time or 3 a.m. Colorado or Mountain time. And I guess he is awake at 3 a.m. East Coast or Colorado time because he says it's 3 a.m. and I should be asleep, but here he is watching our show, which is awesome. Hey man, that's dedication.
Rock and roll, bro.
If we can stream live from Leadville, you might be awake at 3 a.m. watching that unfold as well, dude. Anyway, that's the comments that we have. So let's take a look at let's jump into some feet stuff, I think. So
I'm not a foot guy, but I got two of them. I need them both. So
you do have two of them. So here's the way that. Well, I'll let me tell you my briefly, and then I want to hear yours, please, because it's more important than mine. My feet, I have pretty good luck with them. Honestly, I don't. There every now and then I'll run across a shoe where I'll get like a hot spot, and I find a way to either eliminate the hot spot or just go on to a different shoe. So there's that. The other part though is that skin over the course of a lot of training or a lot of back-to-back training or an ultra, it doesn't matter what shoe you're wearing. Quite a bit, especially if there are things like water crossings, or I've been in Ironman events where, I had to put kind of a little bit of a TMI, but please excuse. One of the things that I found worked really well for me was putting ice down my shirt to sit right about chest level, just below the sternum, and then into my pants. It's not the most flattering thing in the world, but the reason is because right where your femoral artery in the crotch, and it cools you down. And I was doing a very warm race. It worked really well for me, but what wound up happening is that ice then melted and ran down into my shoes, you know? And so some people look at, drain holes in shoes. I'm here to tell you, I've said this for years, drain holes in shoes don't do anything. They'll do something if you are coming out of water,
Right.
and
Yep.
they will, but how often are you really making a stream crossing? And in most shoes today, the stitching or the mesh goes all the way down to the midsole. And so it's going to drain out the sides anyway. So anyway, what we see in these horror stories, I'll actually try to find some pictures when Arron starts talking here. We can put them on the screen, but like, there are horror stories of people, basically the entire bottoms of people's feet just falling off.
Oh, like Marathon de Sables, right? The crossing there. Yep. I mean, the pictures of those guys' feet are
it's brutal.
Disgusting.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Like I wish that upon nobody, and then yet there are people that voluntarily sign up to do it again.
Dude, I could not even imagine. And so for me, my skin does pretty well. I do not, I admittedly, if you want to be vain about your feet, running big distance like that is probably not your thing. But I don't get black
country, wear socks
and sandals.
Yeah, right.
Just rock that dad style, baby. I don't. I personally have gotten one black toenail ever in thousands of miles. I wear a shoe size that lets my foot expand. I'm not at the toe. I can't remember why I got the one black toenail, but one black toenail ever. I feel like I'm very fortunate. And then the socks that I wear, which we'll get into in a second, I typically speaking go with the same socks because they prevent blisters for me. And then my skin just seems to do well. Like I like spending time barefoot when I'm not running because then it builds up those calluses and it's kind of like, again, building that toughness. And so that's kind of how I get it done. It's not to say that I don't get a blister here and there, but like not really, maybe once or twice a year. I get more skiing than backcountry touring than running. So how about you, Arron?
Yeah. So similar boat. I've worn when I first started ultra running or running in general. I started with the Walmart, Kmart, whatever socks. Just whatever socks I had. Regular shoes and feet got destroyed, right? Just your typical thick cotton socks, shoes that were too, they fit, but they weren't, I always size up half a size from my normal shoes and my running shoes. I was wearing at the time New Balance 1400s. So shoes with almost no sole. It was, lost toenails, blisters all the time, and then found in gingies. Got properly fit for a pair of shoes. Actually had some, more cushioning on my shoes. Wore in gingies, and from then, I don't think I've had a blister on my foot. I'm trying to recall if I've ever had a blister on my foot since wearing in gingies. So for 5+ years, no blisters. Only black toes have been from kicking rocks.
Yep.
Or other things, not from running. I live at the beach. If this house wasn't here, you could see the ocean from my office. We have summer feet. And I am a firm believer of summer feet. I've had summer feet my entire, ever since I was a little kid. From about May till November, if you're not running, you're not wearing shoes. We walk to the beach barefoot, hot blacktop, hot sand. You get those summer feet, the bottom of my foot's a callus and it comes midsummer. That is my natural, what is it, a pedicure every couple of days, so it knocks off all the dead skin, but it keeps all my calluses. I'm in the water all the time. My feet are tools. I
Yeah.
treat them as tools.
100%.
They are not beautiful by any means. If you ask my wife, I've got these disgusting feet. Um, but they are there for a reason, and I use them for that purpose. I always tell my kids, God gave you two great feet, use them.
Use them. That's right.
So
I mean, it's so interesting. Like, so I grew up. Actually, I think we talked about this in the first episode. I grew
yeah.
up near you,
Mm-hmm.
in Hampton, Virginia, and then our family still has we have a place in Kitty Hawk, which is in the Outer Banks. And so we go there, a couple times a year, depending on travel and all that stuff. But even here, it's barefoot time. I will say the exceptions are like if we go swimming in a river or something, we probably wear chacos just because the rocks are a bit much. It's not
Sure.
the smooth sand. But yeah, man, the sand like that is so fantastic because it's an abrasive, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's literal sand blasting of your feet every few days. So let's talk about the number one, the couple things that I have run into that I've done in the past, and then recently my daughter, so baby Gearist, if you guys know her, she and she's a little endurance athlete too. I mean, she's currently club team swimming and crushing it. And then she's won. There's a kids only triathlon kind of here in Longmont and Boulder County that she's won every year. The first year she did it when she was 7, she got second place, and she was like, "Yeah, that's not happening again." And then she's won every year since then, except for 2020 when they canceled it because of COVID. But last year she won. This year she will win. But she had a thing, and I think part of it is because she's swimming so much, and it's pool swimming, right? And I can't. I think the pool is using the saline, right? So salt water, I think, as opposed to full on chlorine. But regardless, she's swimming every day of the week, and so her feet are getting a little cracked. And so we had to deal with that a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh God, I don't, because it wasn't like she was going outside because it was still too cold here. Barefoot, but it was bad. I mean, it was like, I probably have a picture of it I can show you guys, which she would kill me for showing, but because she's a preteen, but whatever. I'm the dad. So anyway, we had to find this stuff for her to be able. Yeah, here we go. I'll put this picture. If you're watching, look at that.
Hiya.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, basically there's a whole bunch of cracks on the bottom of her feet. It's not athlete's foot. It's nothing like that. It's just her skin is falling apart. So what I found in a lot of places, including some runner circles, is actually this stuff right here that I'll put
O'Keefe's.
up. It's O'Keefe's, baby. This stuff, O'Keefe's Healthy Feet, or for healthy feet, for extremely dry, cracked feet. This is the bomb. So I would strongly suggest, and again, guys, what we try to do is anything that we talk about, and believe me, I miss things all the time, on the show, we do put in the show notes of the recorded podcast, also the audio only version, the video version. There's links to all this stuff. So I'll put a link there to you. It's cheap. I mean, we got off of Amazon 2 tins for like $10 or something like that. So do you have experience with this stuff, Aaron? Did you know about this?
So I don't. My mom uses a variety of foot creams and stuff for her feet. She's got dry feet. O'Keefe's, and then I think it's Utterly Smooth,
which is Utter Cream.
Utter Cream, yes.
I mean, that's literally a farm product.
Yeah.
For cracked udders on cows or any animal that's nursing frequently.
So I haven't used it. I haven't needed to, thankfully. My kids, all 3 of them will be on swim team this year. But I've got 2 that swim year round, and we haven't had that issue. We did have an issue last summer where they were in the pool all day, and it was like, when you shrivel up and the feet look like prunes, and then they were walking on the pool surface that they were the pool surface would almost rub their foot raw.
Yep, 100%.
And threw some water shoes on them for a couple of weeks. They were fine.
Yeah, it's just got to have a break to build that callus up.
Mm-hmm.
So I've also, in the past when I've known that I was going to be getting, and I'll do this starting probably in about 2 weeks because I figure like my long runs by that point will be at about 10 miles. So when they get there, I'll start putting, and it's really a time thing, right? It's not necessarily a mileage standpoint because who cares? Because straight uphill takes a lot longer than flat to get to 10 miles. So, but I started putting Body Glide on my feet before I put my socks on.
Yeah. So do you use Body Glide or do you use Squirrel's Nut Butter?
I use whatever I have. So I have Body Glide. I also have some. Well, it's older, but D's Nuts
Yes.
by
Yes.
Dave Zabriskie.
Yep.
And then I've used. Let's see what else. I have this one that's what's it called? Blue something, and it's got tea tree oil in it. So really, it's the abrasion factor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just and honestly, powder works well sometimes, especially powders that are specifically designed for cyclists that don't want to do the chamois butter, but they want to do a powder instead. Anything to kind of cut down on the friction, you know?
Yep.
And if it doesn't work and if the sock rubs it right off, which is very probably the case,
9 out of 10 times.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, man, it's like, do what you have to do so that it doesn't mess up your feet, you know, whatever works. And there's certainly got to be a kind of psychological element to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I got a question for you. And I asked because at my last ultra, someone was using this. It was a like aerosol spray. Mm-hmm. Body Glide in a spray form. I'm like, there's no way in hell that works as bad, as good as a stick of Squirrel's Nut Butter. And they were like, yeah, but you can use it. Your buddy can use it. It's not like if you hand your buddy the Squirrel's Nut Butter that you've just put all over your body, they're going to be pumped to use it. But they also said it's better for when, like, if you're already wet, it worked better. I'm like, okay, like I believe you. But have you used the aerosol spray, like the spray Body Glides?
I have not. I've used spray on powder.
Huh.
But I mean, I get
like
it.
Like the Gold Bond spray?
Yeah, but it wasn't Gold Bond. It was specifically marketed to the endurance space. But it's interesting because, like, I mean, I guess if you're using a stick of Body Glide or Squirrel's Nut Butter or something, absolutely, you're not going to be super thrilled if you're like, well, this just came off of my balls, so here you go.
Yeah.
Pardon me, everyone. Let me just throw that little. Sorry, but if it's cream, right? If it's in a tube, I mean.
Sure. Yeah.
I feel like though there's a level of when you get into endurance stuff, there's a level of who gives a crap that comes out, you know?
Absolutely, because someone once told me like they were disgusted by the amount of people putting their hand into a chip jar, at mile 70 of like who would eat those chips? I'm like, trust me, at mile 70, 16 hours deep into a race, you don't care what's in there.
Yeah, bro,
who's touched it, who sneezed on it. Yeah.
You're in the wrong place. I had this so I have a fast story. I was doing Ironman Louisville, and that's a whole long story. This is in 2010. I don't know what happened. This is before Gearist was actually a thing. I don't know why this happened. It's a longer story, but I was super trained up for that race, like super trained up. I was going for a Kona spot, and I jump in the water and instantly started cramping. I don't know why. It wasn't electrolytes. It wasn't hydration. It wasn't a number of things. And I had testing afterward, and I still don't know why. And it doesn't make any sense. But regardless, I came in after the at the second transition. First and second transition. The second transition, you just ridden 112 miles on the bike. And I cramped for every inch of that 112 miles. Like my eyelids were cramping, dude. My neck was cramping. My fingers were cramping. That's what makes me say it was very weird. And then you start messing with your nutrition because it's over the course of 6 hours of cramping for 6 hours, trying to figure it out, and it just doesn't work. So anyway, I get into transition, and the transition people are always amazing. And the guy was like, "Hey, so can I help you put your socks on?" I was like, "Are you kidding me right now, bro? I am so gross." I was like, "You're gonna put my socks on?" He was like, "Yeah, I've got gloves on." I was like, "Seriously? I don't want to put my socks on."
Yeah.
So I got
You let him
to,
put your socks on, right?
yeah, no, well, so with me, what happened was I leaned over to put my sock on, and the cramping, everything from my navel down at that point locked up solid. I had to be carried to the medical tent, and I get in the medical tent, and they don't take your chip. So I had to be carried because I couldn't walk. Get to the medical tent, and they can only give you the things that are on the course. So they can give you Gatorade or whatever. They can give you
Right.
chips and water, but they can't give you an IV. They can't give you like ibuprofen or something like that. It's only what's on the course. And these poor, what I imagine are medical students, and this young girl, and she's very professional and kind. And I think I was pretty polite, but she was like, I'm like laying on my back, like like legs in the air because I can't put them down because it's all just a solid cramp. And she's like, I mean, do you want me to rub something? And I was like, I was like, I said, you'll have to pardon my giggle for a second. And then I was like, I don't know what to tell you to do. One, I'm super gross and sweaty. Two, I don't know where to even begin because
Yeah.
everything was cramped.
Oh.
So anyway, but I digress. So that's not about feet. But it is like you said, it's like you kind of step past those things. So let's talk about the socks. So you mentioned Injinji, and that is what I have with me right here. This is an older pair of mine. I'll hold up for the screen. If you're a runner at all and you don't know what Injinjis are, they are these toe socks. And I must tell you, and I don't understand why people have the reaction. I could never run with that. Have you tried? No, but I could never. And I'm like, just try it.
Yeah.
They're the greatest thing. I'm not knocking other socks. Like I have some Balegas, some Swiftwicks, and Balega are, whew, those are some fantastic socks. Darn tough. Sock company out of Vermont, spectacular. But from a blister aspect, especially that between the toe rub, and Gingies are kind of they're just my go-to. I mean, they are, and they're your go-to too, Aaron.
Yep. Absolutely. Look, I got them on my feet now.
That's right. I mean, honestly, and Injinji makes compression socks that are calf length. If you're a firm believer in compression, they actually make dress socks, just kind of work socks. So like to me, it's all about that blister prevention, and maybe that's why you and I are sitting here going, "Well, I just don't get blisters."
I'm 100%. I mean, I think I may own 3 pair of socks that are not in Gingy.
Yeah.
I mean, that includes all my dress socks, and then all my other socks are running socks. Like that's all I have. So
yeah. I mean, they're what work really well for me, and there are, I think, a couple of other brands out there that do that. They're also double walled socks. So like even Injinji, I think makes a double walled sock where it's, I think they do anyway. It's like the Injinji piece on the inside, and then like a secondary, more normal sock on the outside. With the point being that if there's going to be friction, it should be kind of that smooth sock on sock, I think, as opposed to sock on shoe, which is going to have variable like stitching and things like that on the inside. I think
so. And like I know they make like a hiking shoe or a hiking sock. I think Injinji makes with.
I have them.
Like and I'm like, and when everyone's like, I think to your point, when people say there's no way I'd ever wear those, I'm like, well, you're missing out because the first time you put them on and go for a run, like my feet automatically go like this when I put a sock sock on because they're ready to put the sock on.
Yeah. That's the other thing is that people go, and I will admit that when I first got Injinji's 10, 15 year, whatever it is, a long time ago at this point, I was like, man, this is going to be a pain in the butt to put on. But then when you get used to it, because I think that's the thing is that most people, when your feet are wet, just give it a minute. Just don't do it. But once you're used to it, dude, they just go right on, just like a glove, literally.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, so Right socks, WRIGHT, I think is how it's spelled. They actually have a double walled sock, which is they're very nice. And then Soul, I think, used to make one. But I'm curious what people listening have. What do you do from a sock standpoint? You know, and then why? Like we're talking about all this sensitivity or lack thereof that Aaron and I have, but I think that we're probably the odd men out here. I mean, wouldn't you say?
I would think so. I mean, I know my training partners, they wear one wears Swiftwick, I think, and the other wears Belega. So they're and they don't knock Injinji. They prefer the other one. And
exactly. And it's no sense in yucking someone else's yum. I mean, go nuts. Do your thing.
Yeah. But don't throw shade when I'm wearing mine. When you see me putting mine on in the truck bed of my car, don't be like, ew, look at those socks.
What's up, you 5-toed freak?
Yeah, right. You've got 5 toes too, bro. Sorry.
Okay, I will say that if somebody has to our let's see, less than 5-toed friends out there or more, like let's say you are special and God was like, you get an extra toe. I'm sure and hey, you know what? Here's actually something also. I have a friend that I grew up with. I won't throw him under the bus in case he doesn't want to be identified. But his, I think, second and third toes are webbed. Not all the way up, but 3/4 of the way.
Hope that didn't swim.
He did. When we grew up, he did. He actually lives near you.
Nice.
So yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, that would certainly put a crimp in the old Injinji wearing.
Maybe.
Do you change your socks during an event like Leadville?
Leadville, I will take extra socks. Yep. My first 100, it rained for 10 plus hours in the middle of the run. I mean, there was one point where we were hiking uphill in like shin high water on a horse trail, like in the middle, for like an hour. Oof. And when we were done, first thing I wanted to do, I went through, I think, 4 pair of socks that day, and then took my socks off because I thought I had a 5th pair. And there's nothing worse than then putting gross wet socks back on your gross wet feet. Ooh. Yeah. That is the only time I've changed socks in a race. Was that one? But you know this area. Virginia Beach. In the summertime, you sweat, get in the mail. Yeah. Like your feet are wet 5 minutes into a run, and then they stay wet till you're done because you're sweating consistently, and it's all going down to your feet. So pretty good with wet feet. But yeah, I will take extra socks in case of water crossings or if it rains or what have you, and have them, but I don't plan or hope to change my socks. I hope to keep the same socks on I start with.
Gotcha.
But I will say I always buy a fresh pair of socks for a race.
Got it. And I feel like that's one of those things you can get away with. Don't do different things on race day. Nothing new on race day. Yeah. I feel like that's one of those things where the consistency of product and the stitching. I mean, Injinji is a legacy brand at this point, and you know what you're getting, right? Yeah. You know you're getting something super legit. Do you use anything relative to feet? Again, do you use anything like an orthotic or an insert, super feet, anything like that?
No, I've when I was going through PF earlier this year, I thought about going to get some super feet and trying them out. Never pulled the trigger, but no, I don't use. I will put squirrel's nut butter on around my toes and maybe on my heel and like around my ankle where the foot kind of could touch the the sides of my shoe, especially if it's going to be like a rocky terrain. Other than that, it'll be squirrel's nut butter, sock, shoe, go.
Yep. Sometimes I'll say so. Earlier this year, I was doing a lot of. It's probably a month or two ago, and I was doing a lot of alpine touring, and so that's skiing uphill. If you guys aren't familiar with what alpine touring is, actually, I'll try to find a video. I'll take a note real quick.
Yeah. Insert video here.
That's right. It's a fantastic sport. Basically, you're skiing uphill to ski downhill, right? You're earning the turns, as they say. And I will tell you that my boot, for whatever reason, it wasn't going great. I needed to have the liner fit, to be fair. And the liners in my boots are Intuition liners, and basically you take them to a professional boot fitter. You can do it at home, where they heat them up, or you heat them up, and then there's a whole ton of customization things that you can do. But I was getting these blisters like crazy, both on the lateral and medial side of my foot, below the malleolus. The malleolus, for people that may not know, is that bone that sticks out on either side of your ankle. The lateral being the outside, the medial being the inside. Those ankle bones, that's your malleolus, or malleolus, depending on how you pronounce it. And so this was just below that, kind of on the side of my feet, toward the heel a little bit. Anyway, what I wound up doing was, because I wanted to ski and really get out there, is I wound up doing this whole thing. And granted, it wasn't the bottom of my feet, right? It was the sides. But I did this whole thing where I put like a thin piece of 2-layer gauze and then tape it down on all the way around my heel, essentially. And then, or the sides of my heel, and then put my sock on. And that seemed well, but that is just like overkill. And then if, like you're saying, Aaron, if you're going and you're running and you go through a water crossing, you've got all this waterproof tape it is waterproof. And then your skin separates and then you got to pull that off, bro. Ooh,
no, I'm good. I'm all right.
Horrible.
Like ripping a layer of skin off. Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously. And since then I've gotten new ski boots. I got the liners. So they're the Scarpa, Maestrale RS, which is a great boot. And with that boot purchase, they did a whole fitting at Neptune Mountaineering, which is a mountaineering shop here in Boulder. And so, yeah, anyway, so no orthotics. I don't typically, in my ski boot, I will wear an orthotic that isn't really doing much other than giving me consistent feel, because typically speaking, a ski boot is going to have just a dead flat liner. And I wanted something that's shaped to the way that my foot is naturally. But otherwise, I typically don't. I'm not opposed to them. I used to have a custom one that was made for me, and it was really great. I wore it more cycling than anything else. But running, I like that flexibility to be present in my shoe, you know?
Yeah, and I think with running, if you get properly fit for a shoe and know the kind of shoe you need to wear, whether it's a neutral shoe or a stability shoe or, a 10 millimeter, heel to toe drop or a flat toe, like if you know the shoe that fits your foot and your gait and the way you run best, I think you can mitigate a lot of the extra stuff that goes into it.
Agreed. And technique. I mean,
yeah.
Black toenails, and I'm not, people who do get black toenails, what I'm about to say, please don't take offense. But
and if you do, comment.
If you do, let's hear about it.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I think that not knowing any of you guys who are doing this, who do consistently get black toenails, and again, I'm not talking about just a one here and there, but I'm talking about like you get them once a month type of deal. It sounds like you're overstriding. Whether you're landing on your forefoot, you're landing on your heel, you're landing on your midfoot, wherever you're landing, you're overstriding, because it's a lot of the time it's that you've either got an undersized shoe, or that when you land, if this is I'm kind of demonstrating this to the camera so people listening, but when you land, picture like your foot inside the shoe sliding forward into the toe of the shoe. That's where a lot of those black toenails are going to come from. And that's why, like, typically speaking, during the summer, especially now that I've got like a not quite 2-year-old and I've got my daughter who's 12, and so we'll play outside and all this stuff. I think that and I'm not going through and going to advocate for being a barefoot runner. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that going out and on concrete, not pavement necessarily, but like concrete or smooth asphalt, because concrete, like tarmac road surface is a little too rough, but like a sidewalk is nice and smooth. I say that instead of grass or dirt, because grass or dirt hides things like holes and it's very uneven. But concrete, if you are dead barefoot on that, no socks, no nothing, just barefoot, take 5 minutes and pay attention to how your foot lands. It's going to land under your body. Because if you overstride on that, it'll rip the skin off the front of your foot in 2 seconds.
Yep.
Again, not really advocating either way, but I'm definitely advocating for taking some time to drill yourself and then pay attention, because I think that so much of what we do, we're like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this drill because this dummy I saw in the grit podcast from Gearist told me to go run for 5 minutes barefoot. Fine, but go do it and pay attention. Don't just go do it to do it. I mean, then what's the point? It's like sitting in class and listening to a lecture without paying attention, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
Do you do any of that? I mean, you walk a lot barefoot.
So I have a different stride now than I did 3 years ago, than I did 5+ years ago when I started running. But what I did at one point was, I didn't go outside. I actually got on a treadmill barefoot and tried to understand. Didn't get, not fast, but just enough.
Quick though.
I mean, it was, what do we do? Like a half a mile at like 3 or 4, like but just fast enough to where you weren't walking, but not slow enough, or just fast enough to where you weren't walking. It was a really slow, easy jog, but so I could feel what it felt like to land on the balls of my foot, like land on my forefoot, land properly, land with my, my knees and my weight over my front foot, not jamming into it, not heel striking terribly like I was doing. And once I was like, okay, that's how I should run, I could replicate that in a shoe outside.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I mean, I could run longer with less like hip, knee, ankle, foot pain, because I learned how to run appropriately, for my body anyway.
Absolutely. And I'll say, so some of you may know this, Aaron, you know this, that I used to work for a running shoe company who shall remain nameless. And I will credit one of the founders of that company with helping me kind of figure out, I don't know that part of it's figuring out, how that technique worked with me. And this does have to do with feet, guys, by the way. I know it sounds like we are morphing a little bit into the running form piece, which whatever. But really it's how it affected my feet. And he, it was just as much teaching me to pay attention to what I was doing. And a huge part of that was my feet, as it was the actual technique. And so, on an unrelated note, my friend Danny Abshire, I might be able to get him on this podcast. So I'll have to see if I can work that out. He and his wife Jennifer, the co-founders of Active 88s. It's a running shoe brand, or brand, I guess, running shoe brand that's in Boulder. And so I will see. I haven't asked them yet, so I'm just now thinking of this because he may or may not be that person I'm talking about. So
yeah.
Anywho, so guys, what I'd love to hear about from all of you, tell us your horror stories. I mean, there's one, in fact, I just looked before we came on the show. I'll actually have to find the video and put it in the links. This guy, it's Dr. Kim, America's Holistic Foot Doctor. It says, this is what happens to your feet when you run 100 miles. ? It's a pretty big horror show of whatever this person has going on. So I'll put that in the links.
I want to see.
Oh, dude, it's really bad. I don't think that's. I mean, if I'm being honest, I think that title is very misleading. I think it should be like this could happen, but I feel like there's a lot more. I feel like there's a lot more going on there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
So,
mean, no one just puts. I mean, I guess people do, but that is a comedy of errors to get to that point. That's not just
yes.
one mistake. That is multiple mistakes, or the perfect storm of clouds crashing into each other. Right? Like, it's not just
Yes.
one thing happening. It is multiple situations and issues combining to have disgusting.
I mean, the thumbnail of this video, dude, I'm looking at it right now. It says, "This is what happens when you run 100 miles." And it's like a toe being lanced. And it
Oh
literally says, it says, "squirted onto our camera." And I'm like, what the hell were you doing? I'll try to send this to you, Aaron. It's just horrendous to look. Anyway,
yeah.
I do want to hear people's horror stories, and you know, as Aaron was saying, relative to where you live, tell us about that, because that impact, right? I live in Colorado. It is super dry here for much of the summer months. And so like that definitely affects me. I don't have the same sweat issues that you would have in a place like Virginia Beach where it's super, super humid. So we would love to hear, I think, what are your horror stories? What are some of the, and then what are kind of the overcoming this thing stories? Like, how did you get through that? How did you fix those things? And what are some kind of just some learnings? Because again, as I said at the outset, we're here to learn just as much as we're here to share about what we're doing.
Can
So
you see that?
I can see that. What is that? Is
So
that a broken malleolus?
that is a broken big toe.
Oh, huh. God.
Um, yeah, riding a beach cruiser
Nicely
in,
done.
in flip flops.
Oh, I feel like
Flop,
there's a
flop,
lesson in there.
flop broke
Okay.
on the way down, and foot went smack the pavement.
Oh,
That was a good one.
broken big toe is no joke, man.
Mm-mm.
That'll take you
Yeah,
out for a while.
yeah, that was a few years ago. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, question: if you get a black toe, if
Yep.
you get a blood blister under a big toe, do you take a hot needle, stick it through the toenail, and
Me?
relieve the pressure, or do you let it rock and roll?
So let's ask this as a broader question to
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
else. So me, I did not do that. I didn't, because the black toenail that I had, I don't feel like there wasn't pressure
yeah. Okay.
like that. So I would have been fine with that, because at the end of the day, especially once it's swelled up to the degree that you're feeling so much pressure that you need to do that, we get scared because there's this mental picture of us stabbing a hot needle straight into the quick of our toenail, but that's not what's happening, right? There's basically a cavern or a cavity which is filled up with fluid, and that's what's creating the pressure. So when I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, likely, but I've done it with a fingernail.
Hmm.
But when
Yeah.
it's going through into, like, if you're gentle enough anyway, into an empty space, and then the crap comes out of it from there. So yeah, I'd love to hear what people do with that.
Oh, yeah. So I did it. Like, the handful of black toes I've had. Yeah, that's my. As
Yeah,
soon as I see it, I'm like, all right, get the lighter, get a
yeah,
needle, let's get it
let's
taken
do
care of.
this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Gross.
for me, yeah, because it doesn't hurt. Like, people are like, "Oh my god, it hurts so bad." I'm like, it doesn't. Like, if you do it
Right,
right, it
right.
doesn't really hurt. In
If you
fact,
if you overshoot it, it's probably gonna hurt a
yeah,
lot.
that hurts. Oh, it's hot.
Whew.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. It's a hot needle.
Yeah, I don't have enough experience with. Again, I've had like one black toenail, and really in forever. That wasn't. I mean, maybe I had one that was like from smashing my toe and something, but not from running, and so it wasn't
Right.
a big deal. But yeah, yeah, that would suck. I'd love to hear people's stories, and also, guys, if you have particular things that you've done longer races or ultras. I think it was GDK Mouse that was saying in the content or the comments there that that they were, was it The JDK Mouse. Yeah. Saying back in 2015, we did his last 50 miler. I'd love to hear if you had any issues, anything where you're going those extreme distances. And quite frankly, it doesn't need to be an extreme distance. If your form is bad, you can easily go crank out a 5K and get black toenails all day long. You know?
Oh yeah.
Probably actually more than a 5K because it's so much faster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, similar question to the audience though. Blisters. Do you pop your blisters, or do you let them ride?
Yep. We should have addressed that. We're gonna have to come back to this, I feel like, a little bit.
Because I mean, think about it. If I pull my sock off like I did at Massanutten 100, my first, I mean, we're talking miles and hours in wet socks. Like my feet were sore and gross, and I had blisters, but there was nothing I could have done, worn, or like everybody had blisters because you were just hiking uphill in the water. I popped mine as soon as I saw them. Like, done, get rid of it, tape it, sock on, let's rock and roll. A lot of people were not popping their blisters. Like, one, do you pop your blisters post run, or mid race? Do you pop a blister?
With lancing a blister comes the risk of infection, and that's part of the reason that people would advocate for not doing that. And then when you lance it, even afterwards. So when I was getting those blisters from alpine tours, from backcountry skiing, and by the way, that was all because of the uphill. It wasn't the downhill. I would lance them and then cover them, and it was only literally poking a hole through with a needle.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, maybe in two spots so that it would have a place to kind of drain from and to, so that it wasn't creating a vacuum. And then cover it with just a Band-Aid or something like that, because my wife has a lot of experience in this sort of thing. It was like, she goes, if you take that skin off, it's fresh skin, right? It's just raw flesh, and you're kind of risking infection. That's kind of the validation for doing that. So I don't know. For me, I don't really get blisters, so
that's right. Like I don't get them often, but when I do, like my first thing is exactly that. I will poke a hole in it.
Yep.
And then I usually like take a shower or something, and then dry off, Band-Aid, I'm out. Like,
yeah. But mid-race, there's a lot of dirty stuff going on there.
I mean, period. Like yes, there is.
Just throw your foot in a bucket of alcohol and then keep going.
Yeah, well, I mean, or just pop it and go and deal with it later. I don't know.
I think the problem with that for me comes that if you're thinking about like your skin, the top layer of skin, which is where the blister is typically under that, and then whatever the next layer is that you form that little blister, and then if it gets bigger, if it gets pushed back, it starts to kind of peel those layers apart potentially, which sounds just horrendous. So I don't know. Good question. What do you guys do? Let's hear about it. Tell us. Because Aaron, I mean, frankly, Aaron and I are so perfect that we don't have these problems. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm going to get some hate for that. Just kidding. We're not perfect. Shh, yeah, we are. We just won't tell anybody. Okay, it's cool. Anywho, all right, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. On our next show, I'm going to try to have Neil back, but also potentially getting maybe, no promises because I have not even asked yet, so we will see. Danny Abshire to be on the show to really talk about running form. Yeah, we'll take a look at their shoes a little bit too, but also to really talk about running form.
Yeah.
Because again, I credit him with, if nothing else, and this is not the case, but making me objectively look at how I was running to really kind of fix that. And what is as out of shape as I have been, or as in shape as I've been, my form stays pretty good through all of those things. It's really my ego that gets in the way and messes things up. So anywho, Arron, thank you so much for joining me, sir. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, like it is every week.
Yeah, man. I hope you guys will continue to share our show. And by the way, share it on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. We actually had somebody she was sharing not from I'm trying to think of, this was just the other day. I got this message from somebody on Instagram. Her handle is actively wandering. And I did this video years ago, where you took a Presta valve. So if you know what a Presta valve is on a bike, so a typical bicycle tire valve, the one that looks like your car tire, that's called a Schrader valve. So a Presta valve is this different valve stem, requires a different pump head and all this kind of stuff. But it's very common on road bikes, a lot of mountain bikes. It's a thinner one. It can work, and you can run a smaller hole in a wheel in a rim, and which then doesn't compromise the structure of the rim and so on and so forth. But it's kind of an argument that people don't like one or the other. In any event, if you go to your local service station because you've got a flat on your road bike, chances are they're not going to have a Presta valve head. So you're going to have this way to figure it out. And I made this video where you can take the cap that goes on a Presta valve head and actually make a kind of adapter. So anyway, she shared that on Instagram. It was very kind of her. Again, she is actively wandering on Instagram. So yeah, I'd love to see you guys sharing all this brilliance right here that's going on Instagram. Do it. If you guys have any questions, let us know. Tag us, tag Arron, which is, by the way, if you're listening, ARR, so like Arron, Garrod, ARRONGARROD, and I'm Gearist, both of us on Instagram. Take a look at us, let us know what's up, give us a shout out. Love to hear from you guys. Love to kind of see what you have to say and put it on the show. So, Arron, thank you so much, sir.
Rock and roll, my friend. It was fun.
Peace, guys. We're out. All right. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, dude. Let's see. Presta. I was so focused on like other things with feet that I was like, the number one thing when you brought it up, I was like, blisters is probably pretty damn important.
Yeah. I didn't think about it either because I don't get them very much.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. I know people that just
live with them all the time.
All the time. And the black toenail thing too.
Oh.
Did you see that video I mentioned?
No, I haven't seen it.